So we're back here on the Duncan Duo Real Estate Show talking about the local real estate market. And I wanted to roll to our next topic about property management. And, Paul, great article about why it's a good time to be a landlord.
Right.
Which I thought was, had a lot of great content and kind of reiterates what we talked about earlier in the show about how there's some great investment opportunities, not just, for flips, but for long-term rental returns. And I wanted to get some of your thoughts on the article and why is it such a great time, to be a landlord?
It's a great time to be a landlord because, as you said, there are deals out there. Rental rates have increased in the double digits in our area, here in the Tampa Bay area, as well as the carrying costs have gone a little lower.
Insurance costs softening, HOA fees softening.
Right, and some of the HOA restrictions are softening as well. But every investor, before you start investing, you need to get with a professional like myself and map out a plan. You don't want to just go out there haphazardly and buy a home and then say, okay, I'm going to rent it, because there's some things you need to do due diligence-wise ahead of time. First off, does the HOA allow you to rent that home? Are there any rental restrictions? Is it a 55 or over community?
And not just the HOA, and this is why I think it's important to work with with the property manager and a realtor. We've got a couple of agents that work with the hedge funds that specialize in investment properties. So if you're looking for that standpoint, there's municipalities that have rental restrictions too.
There are, absolutely, and you have to have someone in your court. We work very well with your agents, and we map that out, and we also map a strategy on what their exit strategy is going to be also, because just like the hedge funds, as we mentioned during the break, they buy, they hold for a while, and then they sell those and buy different ones. And there's such things as 1031 exchanges where they reduce or eliminate their capital gains taxes. But you have to have a strategy in place before you start to do that. Otherwise, you may end up behind the Powerball.
And I think it's also important that, as an investor looking to become a landlord, if you don't own your own home, I think that's the first step. I've seen nightmarish situations where people that don't own their own home,
right,
and then decide to buy and rent properties. Mm-hmm. And I think that's until you understand the process of owning a home and property tax, all the different steps of maintenance and all, until you do it yourself, it's really hard to recommend doing that. It's kind of like saying, okay, we're going to skip right from high school basketball and throw you right in the NBA with LeBron James. It isn't going to work too well. You're going to get your shot swatted.
Unless you're LeBron James.
He didn't skip high school basketball. Right, yeah. That's what I'm saying, from 8th grade to the NBA. High school, you can do the high school jump, but in reality, that's exactly what you're doing. You have to have a plan, but you also have to have a little bit of, kind of your toe in the sand, a little bit of experience.
I wanted to mention the people who are accidental landlords. They have a mindset often that this is my home and this is where I raise my children and so forth. They have to divorce themselves from that thought process.
Completely. Oh my goodness, I can't tell you how rough
this is a business now, and it's to be treated like a business. Okay, you're going to have costs. You're going to have things that you didn't necessarily plan on that you should have planned on. And if you're trying to do it on your own, or you're not working with a true professional property manager like ourselves, then you're not going to be prepared for those types of things. And when something goes wrong, you can't just nickel and dime. You have to maintain the property according to the Florida landlord tenant law.
And I think that when you look at the person that owned a home and kind of became an accidental landlord and they have that emotional attachment. I personally have 2 rental properties I lived in,
right,
and I just thought, when I got done with them, hey, it'll make a great rental. Why sell an asset?
Right.
And that's the philosophy of a lot of people. For me personally, it is a challenge to drive by and maybe see the yard not as maintained and all that. But you literally have to just think about it as, it's a financial. It's like owning a stock. Stop worrying so much about, as long as it's not devaluing the property, as long as there's not damage. Right. They're not going to keep it the same way you did. They might put something. They might decorate it differently. They're going to have different furniture. They may not keep it as clean as you do.
Exactly.
But the key is that it is meant to make you money. And that you have to look at, forget everything else and just pay attention to green, and that's what you have to do. So,
don't depend on your rent to pay that month's mortgage.
Yeah, exactly. You pay your mortgage and exactly, yeah. Well, I'll tell you the other thing is you have people that, that have to walk the fine line. There are fair housing laws that you know,
Absolutely.
that dictate what we're allowed to do, what we're allowed to say, and who can, you know,
What we're
how
allowed
you
to ask.
exactly. And you'll have people say, oh, you know, I want a family with kids here, or, you know, I don't want this here, I don't
I
want
don't
that
want kids
there.
because I have a pool.
Right,
Can't
yeah,
do that
yeah,
either.
exactly. So you have to be really cautious about that as a landlord, because you certainly don't want to start off setting yourself up for liability by getting yourself in trouble and then
Right.
losing the income that you think you're going to gain by a lawsuit or a, you know, violation with fair housing or some other type of thing. So you really can't dictate, you know, those types of things yet, you know, and it's
the
still your
Florida landlord-
decision as a landlord to accept or decline someone, but there's only certain pieces of information you're allowed to ask.
Right, and the Florida landlord tenant law applies to everyone, whether you're a private owner renting your own home, or a firm like ourselves that rents a lot of homes to a lot of different people for other people. The landlord tenant law is not specific to just companies, it's everyone it applies to.
Yeah, and I think the accidental landlord or the first time landlord, just like, you know, selling a home, there are people out there that believe that they can do it themselves, right? And,
Sure.
and again, are there some people that are successful? Yes, but if you look at the majority of them, statistically, Florida Association of Realtors, the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal have all come out with reports that show that sellers that don't use a broker sell for less. And I think the same thing can be said for people that attempt to manage it themselves. However, I don't think it's such a bad idea for them to manage their very first rental property on their own, because then they realize how challenging and hard it is, and realize the importance of a property manager.
Right.
You know, we've had people that have bought a bunch of property and hired a property manager, and then something happened in their life and they lost some income and said, you know what, I'm just going to do it myself now. And then 6 months later, they're calling you, Paul, and saying, that was a big mistake. You don't really want to do this.
And
You
those
don't want
are
to
the
get toilet calls in the middle of the night.
Right,
you
and
know?
those are the ones that we really enjoy working with, because they have, you know, I hope they didn't get burned too bad, but those are the ones that have rented to either friends, acquaintances, previous neighbors and so forth that, you know, they left them holding the bag, they didn't collect security deposit, they didn't do tenant background checks, they didn't do a lot of the things that we do, and it ends up biting them in the behind because they get caught left holding a basket, and that's just not fair to them.
Well, and the benefit of them doing one themselves is I think that it gives them perspective
Right.
of how challenging it can be, and really how, not that it's hard, it's inconvenient.
It's
You
very
know,
convenient.
they're out at dinner on a Saturday, enjoying their family, and you know, they want to enjoy their night out, and they're getting calls about, you know, there's this faucet dripping in the bathroom, or, you know, I need this fixed, or I'm moving out, or, you know, all the kind of drama that you get sometimes.
Or like
with
we had
rental property.
Wednesday, family getting prepared for Thanksgiving, and they call me at 4:30 in the afternoon on Wednesday, day before Thanksgiving, and their garbage disposal blocks up, starts smoking, and burns out. Now they got a sink full of vegetables that they were preparing.
Right,
What do you do?
exactly.
Do you have somebody that you can call that will get there in 20 minutes?
Right.
We do.
And that's and I can tell you that's priceless right there, because that's the stuff that's the reason you hire a it's really, you know, valuing your time, and I would tell you that if you have any interest in being a you know, an owner of a lot of property or a heavy investor, at some point you're gonna have to have a solution for that. You can't do it yourself. You're gonna make mistakes. You're gonna not want to get over there on a Saturday to show the property to somebody, and then you're gonna eat a month of rent because that was the person that would have rented it. They were an impulse renter and they rented something down the street. And there's so many losses that you can't calculate when it comes to rental property. Like that, for example, there's no way you can statistically know the likelihood of someone showing up to rent a property and them being the one and then them renting someone else because you couldn't get there.
Right.
But it happens every single day, and it's the same thing we tell the for sale by owners. You know, look, there are going to be times when you're not going to want to show the home, you're not going to be able to get over there, that a team of 40 people like mine, somebody can get over there and show the house and get it
Right.
sold, versus, you know, the you know, you telling them no and then them going and buying stuff down the street. It happens all the time. Homes don't sell and homes don't rent
Exactly.
for that specific reason all the time, that the consumers, the owners of the property never know that. There's never any way for them to track it. I can tell you, with the number of clients we've dealt with, the number of homes we sell, it happens all the time. You know, people for sale by owners will come to us and, you know, well, I can only show it about half the time, and it's priced right, you know, and it didn't sell. Well, there you go. You turned away half your buyers. What do you think's gonna?
Exactly.
What do you think would happen if Walmart today or on Black Friday, if Walmart said, hey, everybody, only half of you can come in.
Right.
They're gonna lose a lot of sales.
It wouldn't be black for them today.
Yeah, wouldn't be Black Friday.
Still be red.
Yeah, it'd be Red Friday. So I think that's a good point. So speaking about that, on the landlord, and a great time to be a landlord, in addition to all the cash that's out there, I think people are completely mystified about the process of getting a loan for rental property. They think it's going to be way more expensive and way higher rates. I know we talked about it before, but I want to get that message out there.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely, there's a lot of investors that obviously pay cash, and then there's a lot of investors that get financing as well. So, I mean, the common question is, how much of a down payment do you need? Typically, the minimum down payment for an investment property is 15%, though a lot of people will put down 20% just to eliminate the
private
PMI.
mortgage insurance, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, the rates, I mean, we're still talking about mid-4s,
Yeah.
which is better than any other time in history.
Primary rates were back in the day.
Right, well, I mean, even better
Yeah.
than were primary rates back in the day. So yeah, financing for investment, it's not any more difficult. We just have to, qualify you based on the other factors, your credit, your income, your debt-to-income ratio, and go from there.
And the investor needs to also calculate those payments into their return on investment or their capitalization rate, because a lot of times they don't know how to do that, and we have the know-how to help them calculate that to make it a profitable experience.
And I think that when an investor looks at, rental property, and a lot of times they'll look at it in terms of what it'll rent for, what their mortgage is, and this is, David is awesome, so I know he wouldn't do this, but there's a lot of mortgage lenders that will unfortunately make the mistake of, or not make the mistake, they have to provide the quotes of insurance and taxes. You guys have to have some general type information to help qualify them. But the borrower will take that as good as fact, right? So, do your numbers, but do them real. In other words, figure out exactly what the taxes are going to be. Get insurance quotes, get the exact HOAs, and work from those.
Right.
Because we've had investors look at investment property and they say, "Oh, well, my mortgage lender said insurance and taxes were going to be this." It's like,
Yeah.
well, that's just a form that's an estimate.
That's like the online sites that give you what your estimated payment is going to be. I mean,
Right.
If any home buyer, any home shopper will know that tax bills vary dramatically from home to home, even homes in the same neighborhood.
And they don't understand why they do.
Right.
And they need a professional to explain what the difference between homestead exemption is, if it has a military additional exemption, and so forth. They don't understand that. They just look at the one number and don't realize that won't be their number regardless.
Exactly, and you're going to assume the current owner's tax bill regardless of anything for the first year, and then if you can apply your own homestead exemption, then you can do that for the following year. But for that first year, you're going to pay whatever that current owner is paying.
Well, and then that's the other side of it too, is even determining the math of, does it have a homestead exemption on it right now that I'm going to lose in a year, and then what's my payment? Factor your ROI on real numbers.
Strategy.
If you're buying a home that has a homestead exemption on it, that's going to go away. Likely your taxes are going to go up. So do some math. You can figure out the millage rate. You can do the math to break all that down. So I think that's really important, knowing the real math, because there'll be people that'll buy it based on the low taxes of the homestead exemption, and then 2 years later they're freaking out because they got a bad investment property that's not making the money anymore, all because they didn't do their due diligence and they didn't do the math up front. So we'll be back. We're going to continue. We're going to have our last segment here on 970 WFLA, wrapping up about the local real estate market after a quick break here on the Duncan Duo Show.